Good morning, everyone, and I think it's still Happy Easter. It was Easter yesterday, Easter Sunday yesterday, so anyway, I'll wait for a few of you to show up. Hopefully nobody will. That'd be rather good. I'm hoping because it's Bank Holiday Monday, everyone's gone out training and I can get away with doing all of 3 minutes. So, somebody's popped on. Who is it? Say hello. Good morning, good morning. I'm starting my little treadmill jaunt with a walk as usual. Still not sure who's on. A couple of people popping on. Hey Cass, how you doing? Good to see you. Right, well, the numbers are growing, so I shall start. Morning, Smithy. How are you? So, just going on. Strangely, I'm actually not looking forward to this one. I think I've bitten off more than I can chew, so this could be interesting. So the plan is, whilst I have got however much time, anything usually from 15 minutes to an hour before I get to disturb children, I thought today, as a suggestion from chatting to Bob Tobin at powermeters.com, I would talk about something I talk about time training rate and using also power and or pace as a method of training. And of course, I thought, that's a doddle, I do that all the time. Apart from the fact when I do it all the time, I've usually got slides, and a good time talking to Joe yesterday, and we were going to do a Zoom presentation, put slides on and Facebook live stream it, and in the end it's just decided it was going to be far too much hassle. So good morning, Bright, how are you? Good morning from Nigeria. Slow down. No, this is my warm-up, Smithy. 3 miles an hour for the first 3.5 minutes, and then I'm going to go how do I balance polarized training? Okay, we'll try and get into all of that. Might do training on a different day though, David. We'll try and get to as much as that as possible. Morning, Sean. Morning, Paul. Morning, Paul. Quite a few of you online now. So the plan is I'm going to try and chat as much as I can off the top of my head. No structure, no slides. This could be a complete car crash, or it could be absolutely amazing. Morning, Paul. Morning, Charlotte. Great of you all to come on board. So hopefully, most of you have got something like this, some form of heart rate monitor, regardless of whether you're a runner, cyclist or triathlete. You might then use your GPS system with a pace, or you might use your GPS system if you're really fancy and a cyclist with power output, or if you're really, really frightening as a runner, you might even use, I'm just going to put the speed up now a little bit, you might even use something like Strider to look at power measurements whilst you run. So, what's best? What's most effective? What do you guys use? Shout some comments, shout some questions. And I think the network's going to drop out a couple of times, but we'll do our best. So, shout me, what do you use? Focused on heart rate, focused on power, focused on pace? How do you structure your training, or do you not? So, hey Charlotte, happy Easter, yep. The kids don't know it's Easter yet, we haven't given them their eggs. How bad are we as parents? Anyway, Easter for us will be tomorrow when Becky's got a few days off, so ideally, and different people work on different principles. I saw an online presentation from somebody I know the other day that's taken up coaching recently, and he perceived exertion scale various athletes, yeah, feel. So that's the one I'm going on, Dave. Perceived exertion. Now, in my mind, you've got no good solid feedback. So what we're going to try and do, we're going to try and give you an understanding of why do we use different methodologies to start with. So to me, feel is really difficult to go on. And at this point, what I wanted to do is I've got a slide presentation that I've got from a conference I did in the States years and years ago, probably about 1990. I was trying to work it out the other day. It must have been about 94 or 95, where the Australian head physiologist at the Australian Institute of Sport had given me all the power data and all the heart rate data from the Australian national cycling team from the Tour Down Under. So Cadell Evans, Stu O'Grady were two of the team members at the time. Pretty good cyclists, and I had all their power data and all their heart rate data. Morning, Martin. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to see how you could relate heart rate and how you could relate power, because the problem is perception of feel can be affected by so many different external factors as well as internal factors. And what we found in a nutshell, and I'd say I'm tempted to do this as a Zoom presentation as well at some stage with lots of I only ever use heart rate initially because of no power, and it seemed to work. Okay, yeah, like that. We end up with lots of pretty pictures. Found was heart rate gives you a really, really good overview of whole body, but sadly it doesn't give us anything that's instantaneous, whereas or power gives you an instantaneous heart rate, but perhaps isn't particularly good to look at a whole body workload, because we're moving around, powers are jumping up and down too much. And again, we can trick the body, we can almost overview what's going on from an effective mechanism. So what am I meaning by? As I'm working at a steady pace, and I'll flick onto my heart rate now. Well, this is telling me I'm getting some nonsense coming off this again today. I'm not got my chest strap on. This yesterday when I started off, wasn't getting good signals. So let's go back to basics. And I say this is either going to be a complete car crash, or it's going to go all over the place, or it's going to come out something useful. So at the moment, my chest strap, I've lost it. I'm going to need to buy a new one. I've got a sneaking suspicion that when I did a half marathon just before shutdown, I wore it in that race, and I think I took it off after the race, and I think I must have dropped it. So I haven't got round to reordering a new one because it's a non-essential item in my mind, and so I don't really need postie to bring me one to the house. So I've been reliant on heart rate monitor with built-in sensors at the back. And generally what I would say to people is that in that case, heart rate that you get from your watch directly, and there's a lot of watches, the Garmin's, the Polars, that now do build. Yeah, sorry Neil, I think we had the signal dropping out at this end. It seems to be stronger now, so I'm not sure if it's your end. I've not had a drop out yet. Started off that way, but I think we're fine now. So the heart rate that you get from your watch as an optical sensor. So at the moment, this is suggesting me my heart rate's a 145. Well, very unlikely, because normally at this pace on the treadmill, I'm about 110, 115. I could check, and it's probably worthwhile doing if I wasn't trying to talk to you and everything else. but this to me at the moment seems really unrealistic. So if you want to get decent values, make sure you wear your chest strap. Heart rate strap, I would say, isn't quite good enough. The new Garmin's a good one. Is that the new Garmin chest strap pull, or the wrist-based sensor? Because I would generally say, if I'm doing an easier session or a steady state session, I can generally go by this. If I'm doing anything that's interval, high intensity, or where I'm pace, then my heart rates are jumping up and down, and therefore the optical sensor doesn't work quite well. Yeah, I generally say, Ben, that the chest straps are generally more accurate. So as I say, morning Tonya, morning Rich. So I generally say, if you want to make sure you've got good, reliable data, use your chest. And if you're just doing a light session, easy session, steady state session, you can probably get away with the data that your watch is giving you. Morning Carl. But if you're going to do anything that's varying in pace, varying in intensity, then you need to move to the chest strap. Oh, thank you, Paul, that's useful to know. Recently on the chest strap, I was finding the Garmin one hadn't been brilliant, hadn't been good, and I've been using a Wahoo, so the blue chest strap, and I was finding I was getting good, reliable signals with that. And I was doing it the way that, you know, I could run with two watches. I could use my wrist strap, and I'd put my second heart rate monitor on, and I'd use another sensor. I'm finding that I was pretty happy with what I was getting. And likewise in the lab, I used the polars, and I find that the polars have, used to be proven to be ECG accurate. And again, with the chest strap, with a polar, you're finding getting is a true response of what's going on. So first thing, what technology are you using? So if we're using a heart rate monitor, I'd be looking at using chest strap, if you can do. Doesn't mean that you need to do all sessions that way, but it just gives us a starting point. So that's the first thing we're going to think about. What technology are you going to use? Now, why do we want to start looking at using technology over feeling? So Smithy was on earlier. I don't know, let's say there was a coach I was watching the other day, and he was giving a lot of his athletes feedback based on perceived exertion. And the problem with perceived it's very hard then to quantify. One of the biggest problems that I see occur with athletes is that when we actually do quantify their training sessions, they're, a Wahoo ticker then. TICKR, that's the one I've been using. It's Bluetooth and it's ANT Plus, so it talks to most things. I'm not going to repeat that, Smithy, behave yourself. So, one of the problems that say we've got with perceived exertion is, unless you are a very talented athlete and really used to listening to your body, what I tend to say is that most athletes will find that their easy sessions are too hard, and their hard sessions then become too easy, and that's for a variety of reasons. So again, that's a good point, David. So Dave Glossy just said he used power and heart rate during long races and found it stressful. So again, depending on how much time we've got on our knees, in a race situation, depending on what you're racing, so it might be slightly different from an athlete that's doing a time trial or a triathlon, and I've just dropped off the screen, and at the same point I'm going to put my fan on because I'm getting warm. So in a race situation, you're often better to go, unless you are looking at doing a pure time trial where it is all about pacing, or you're doing a longer distance triathlon and it's all about pacing, more often than not you need to race on feel, and you race as hard as you can for the distance you're racing at, unless you're looking at something long where you've got an element of pacing. And you've got other factors in a race, like dehydration, like temperature, around on pace, that mean that looking at power and heart rate can often be really stressful. So yeah, in a race situation, we don't worry about what's going on with heart rate and power responses, but it's now about smartening up your training. So the value of using heart rate and power over perceived exertion, over feel, is that we can then quantify properly. So quite a few of you, the names are popping up, have been in for testing or have spoken to me about it. What we're able to do is, first of all, we're able to look at your strengths and weaknesses and actually then clearly identify training zones. And so one of the big problems, hey Amy, one of the big problems that we've got is that athletes often won't do their easy sessions easy enough. So now my heart rate's settled down to where it should be. I'm at 114, 150, as opposed to the 135. It might have just been the anxiety of seeing you guys, because again, we get all sorts of stuff popping in with what's going on. So using your heart rate, potentially using speed, potentially using power output, we can quantify what we're doing properly in terms of training responses. So if it needs to be an easy session, by looking at heart rate, looking at power, looking at pace, we can make sure our session is easy enough and that we don't get carried away. We don't see someone up the road ahead of us, or granny comes past us on a e-bike, think you want to chase them down, or you're riding through the town, you want to start commuter racing or sprinting through traffic lights. You use your monitor to make sure the session is where it needs to be. And that way, by making sure an easy session is easy enough, we can either promote the fat burning that we want to help us with weight loss, we can provide cardiovascular endurance that we need to help us with long-term fitness build, morning mat, or we can ensure that we're working hard enough to do our threshold work or our peak work intensities that we need to. So for me, using heart rate, power and pace, either in isolation or in combination, really will help us get a much better focus over just exercising on pure feel. Now, I also don't like people to become a slave to them. So I will quite often say to people to go and do an unstructured session where they'll just go out and ride or run freely and not be worried about what's going on in terms of heart rate responses, because it's all about getting the body used to mixing intensity and enjoying training. Training shouldn't become a chore. As soon as training becomes a chore, it's time to stop. So there's a balance. We've got to, on one hand, look at the feed we can get to smarten our training, to make sure we're training smarter and not harder. And on the other hand, we've got to make sure our training is enjoyable, but we've got to make sure that we're benefiting from the sessions that we do. So doing that, as I say, you monitor, whether it's power, whether it's pace, whether it's heart rate, should be giving us adequate feedback. So really, it's about having a sensible feedback mechanism as opposed to just going training blindly. And it's the same with any business approach. You know, if you're in a business and you're just going in and responding on a day-to-day to what's going on, you're never going to grow, you're never going to move forward. So it's about looking at planning, it's about looking at targeting. So, and I think Dave Glossy mentioned earlier about polarizing training. So again, we can use our monitor effectively to make sure that we're switching between hard sessions and easy sessions to make sure that we've got appropriate recovery between what we're doing. So we can polarize and we can mix our sessions much more effectively. Yes, Paul, you said, yeah, constant heart rate outdoors is difficult due to traffic, road conditions, etc., etc. But then that's no different to looking at different heart rate zones. My phone's on another, so I'm just gonna see if I can, you're losing me, you see. My phone's falling off. I'm gonna try something a bit different today. So yeah, you're completely right with that, Paul, that it is very, very difficult to maintain that constant heart rate out on the road. But in the same way, it's also very, very difficult to maintain that constant power output out on the road. Yeah, again, totally agree with that, Ben. Rate perceived exertion will vary, but so will heart rate, so will power output. So again, this is where I start to say to people, you've got to use a combination of tools. So let me just come back to Paul's comment on maintaining a constant heart rate. So if I'm setting someone a target zone, I don't expect them to be 100% of the ride or the run within that target zone, but that is the zone that we're trying to look to achieve. So if you can go out and your outdoor session, and it's a constant effort session, is 50 to 60% of the time within the target, and whether that's a power target or whether that's a heart rate target, then that's an absolutely brilliant session. Of course, if you then go out and you spend a lot more time in your training zone, and I've got athletes that can spend 80 to 90% of the time in the target zone because they'll either choose their routes, or they're lucky enough to have slightly flatter routes, or they're really strong at their riding, so they're backing off on climbs and pushing through the power on the descents, and they're keeping much more of a constant power on an undulating course. They'll spend a lot more time within their training zones. So what we need to do is we need to try and get as much of our training time within the target zone. Now again, for those of you that got, I can never remember the pages in the running book, but the cycling book, about page 72, I've got a graph of a rider that's looking to stay in their training zone for the duration of a 2-hour ride, or just go and ride in an unstructured manner. And what we've got is we'll find that if an athlete can spend 80-85% in their target zone, all they need to be doing is, if they're doing 6 hours of training a week, they're almost 5 hours in their effective training zone. Whereas if they're riding in an unstructured manner, or running in an unstructured manner, they might only be in that target zone for 25 to 30% of their training time. So in order to get 5 hours, so that's one of the things that I would look at, is pushing on your aerobic base for anything from months. Oh, this connection is dropping out like mad today, guys. I'm really sorry. So the first thing to do is push that aerobic base work, increase your volume, increase your steady state work at the right training intensity, rather than doing loads and loads of unstructured hours. Once you've done that, then I'd be looking at a lot more extended interval work, either at or just below functional threshold power. And you'll find that with the increased aerobic capacity you've got and the increased lactate tolerance that you've got, your functional threshold power will go up quite significantly. And bizarrely, well, it's not bizarre to me, but I've got cases, and I saw Wayne Girdleston pop up earlier. I'm not sure if Wayne's still on, but I've got quite a few cases, and Wayne's a classic one I'll often show people, where I think Wayne came in for a September-October test a good few years ago now, and sent him away, and he basically did 4.5, 5 months of mostly aerobic endurance work, the occasional unstructured ride, and hardly any threshold work. And I got the same situation with runners, and I remember Wayne's details very, very clearly, that when he came back in for his retest bit early March time, his functional threshold power had gone up by nearly 50 watts, despite the fact that he'd spent the whole winter doing virtually no threshold or no anaerobic work whatsoever. So the idea that you need to be going and doing loads and loads of threshold work to improve your functional threshold power I believe is incorrect. So again, it's all about using heart rate and power as a mechanism to make sure that you're training at the right intensity. Now, what I'd be saying to you here is that, yeah, there are problems with heart rate, there are problems with power output, problems with both. So, I'm not sure if David picked up, or someone picked up before. Yes, if I'm fatigued, if I've not eaten properly, if I'm tired, if I've not slept well, if I'm dehydrated, or in the opposite direction, if I'm in a race situation, the adrenaline's going, or it's really hot and so temperature control is out, my heart rate isn't a great mechanism. So my heart rate can be all over the place depending on those factors. However, in the same way, your heart rate gives us a very, very good whole body overview of how your body is responding to a certain workload. Now, the problem I've got with power output, and power is brilliant because it's instantaneous. It tells us exactly what is going on at that precise second, or if you're averaging out your data, because a lot of people find it hard to keep your power very, very smooth if you're riding outdoors over a 10 or a 30-second average. That heart rate, that power data is brilliant, but if you're training to power and you're not regulating your training zones often enough, you can find, go off you go and enjoy your run, David. You can always watch this later on, and I'll do a quick cheeky at the moment because if you guys are finding it valuable, flick over to coffee.com, that's ko-fi.com/sports test, and I'm going to be cheeky and say, buy me a coffee for my time. Hopefully if you found it useful, it'd be nice to show your appreciation. You don't have to, of course, but as I say, I will post this up on Coffee later on for those of you that haven't been able to watch it all, or want to come back and watch it and come back and see where my ramblings have taken me for. We've done alright so far, we're on to about 28 minutes, so kids haven't disturbed me yet. They also don't know I'm up here this morning, which is good. So ko-fi.com/sports test if you like what I'm doing and you want any more and want me to come back. So so power output and or pace can show us what's going on very instantaneously. Now, if I think about power output on bikes, what you've got is a marker which a lot of riders will ride to. Brilliant stuff, no problems at all. But again, if something is going wrong with the physiology, if you've not slept enough, if you've not recovered well enough, you can still be targeting the power output for your session, but your body is fatigued. Your heart rate's not elevating and you're not responding properly. Now, I'm not saying all riders do this, but a lot of cyclists are so hung up on their power outputs that they actually don't bother looking at the heart rate or no longer think that heart rate is necessary, so they don't put their heart rate monitor strap on, and they've got power numbers, but they've got no physiological data as to how their body is responding with that. So of course that leaves us with two problems, possibly three. But the first one is, if you're training tired, you've got no responses as to how your body is going, or actually if you're improving fitness, you've got no responses to how your body is going. So let's say as an example, you're sitting and focusing on holding 200 watts for an hour. Doesn't matter whether that's an FTP session or steady endurance session for some athletes. If you're not watching what your heart rate is doing during that 200 watts for that hour, you've got no indication of whether you're overheating, you've got no indication as to whether you're drinking enough, and as the sessions go on over the weeks, you've got no indication as to whether your fitness is improving or not. So, same could be said about pace. If you're going out and looking to run at 4 minute per K pace, regardless of whether that's your race pace or steady endurance pace for some athletes, and you're not looking at your heart rate, we've got no markers as to whether your body is actually improving and responding to what's going on. So it's great having a GPS system on and looking at what your splits are, but how do you know that you're actually improving if you're not looking, observing and monitoring what your heart rate is doing? So your heart rate can be a great tool So if you're fatigued, you'll struggle to get your heart rate up. Okay, you can still try and target a power output, but if you're struggling to get your heart rate up from a session that you might have been doing 3 or 4 days or a week earlier, then you realise there's a problem. Paul, I know at the moment you're training in Morning Cane, you're training in a shed in France, and I'm hoping it's probably a bit warmer for you than it is here. It's quite chilly today here. But again, as the session goes on, for a fixed power output or a fixed pace, if your heart rate is just constantly drifting up, we know that from your cardiovascular system isn't working as well as it should be. Chances are you're dehydrating. So I think, as I mentioned in one of my chats the other day, about 70% of the energy that you generate in the muscle is just given off as heat. And the sweat loss should help dissipate that heat. But if that sweat loss is not effective because we're not getting air movement going over us, or we're sweating but we're not replenishing that fluid, then the heart rate is going to have to drift up to compensate the cardiovascular stress that you're placing. But if you're holding the same pace and the heart rate's drifting up, it means you've got a disjoint. You're not working at the appropriate pace anymore. Now, some situations that might be fine. In other situations, it gives us an indication of either the training zones aren't quite where they should be, or we're not looking after nutrition properly, we're not looking after hydration properly. But again, as a training tool, as you get fitter and stronger and the training weeks go on, in the same way, we expect someone should be able to increase their work capacity, we use the combination of heart rate and power or pace to check that an athlete is either training and responding to the training they're doing, or isn't recovering properly from the training sessions. Morning, Paul, good to see you. Hope all is well with you and Joe and the little ones. So, we've got some really positives about using heart rate, and we've got some real negatives about using heart rate. But in the same way, you've got some real positives about using power or pace, and real negatives about using power or pace. So, using power or pace in isolation and not looking at heart rate, you don't get the physiological feedback that you need to push the body forward when you're improving. So you might have in your mind, no problems Nick, have a good day, snarl at them. You'll understand what I mean. So you don't have the indications that it's time to move on your training zone. So again, if you've set an FTP of, let's say 250 watts, and suddenly over a period of 3-4 weeks, your heart rate's constantly running 5 beats a minute lower than it was 3-4 weeks earlier, well, it's either time to reset and push power zones up, or that there's something else going wrong. So if people use power and functional threshold power as a training tool, they often don't reset those guidelines often enough. So it's about constantly using both heart rate and power or pace to reflect what's going on, look at how your physiology is coping, and change your training accordingly. So that means in both directions. It means stepping up your training workloads, or it means backing off and giving yourself extra recovery time, or using it to learn lessons about hydration and nutrition that you wouldn't do. And I'm not sure if Sean's still on or not, but Sean, you were asking about, and I've got to be careful about what I say here. I'm sure they're not listening, and even if they are, I don't give a shit. I'll give them enough money each month. Stuff like training peaks and Garmin responses. So what we find is, and I know, Sean, you're trying to push up your CTO, which is cumulative training load. Well, how do we need to do that? It's not necessarily about going out and bashing out more interval work. It's about keeping consistency in your training and pushing your training on very, very gradually. Adrian, I've got half of that text, but because it's so long, I get like the first 3 lines and I've missed the rest of it, so I might need to look at that one later on. So if we're looking at tools like Training Peaks, whether you're using Garmin and you're looking at the Garmin training tools and recovery times and things like that, what we're going to be really careful with is that's often computer says. It doesn't take into account, and I don't know, Sean, if you're still doing shift work and night work, but there's a few of my guys that I look after and help out that do shift work, which might be days on and days off, and then nights on and nights off. The problem is, Training Peaks doesn't account for the fact that you had 2 or 3 or 4 nights where you've worked 12-hour nights, and as a result you've only slept 3 or 4 hours in the day, your diet's gone completely to pot, and it's telling you you're losing fitness because you're not training enough. So we've got to look at what's going on with physiology, and I don't believe at the moment, and I might be wrong, and I can be proven wrong, which I'm quite happy to do, but I don't believe that the stats that are given to you by computer says packages like Garmin Connect or Training Peaks or Strava Premium or whatever it's called these days, and Zwift actually gives us a true response of what's going on. So this is where having, and I'll promote myself for 30 seconds, I'll try not to, but this is actually having the understanding of a good coach, where a good coach can look at what's going on, can talk to you about the data that's going on, and actually can give you feedback according to how you feel, rather than how computer says you should feel. And those of you that might notice when I promoted the little chat that I was doing this morning, I used my Garmin, and I was on a 4Runner 935 at the time, and I'd finished a training run. At the end of that training run, it said recovery time, 50 hours. Now for that specific run, morning Alex, how's Spider-Man this morning? Have you done your loop yet? For that specific run, I've been really naughty. I'd gone up onto Cannock Chase, and I'd gone and run the mountain bike loop. So really tight, twisty turns. In terms of running on it, it's really quite hard work. And so as a result, I was running hard. So my heart rates were probably about 5 or 10 beats lower than they would have been for race pace, but well above where they would be for a standard endurance pace. But where I'd be running race pace at 3:45, 4 minutes per K, for this run I think I averaged for an hour about 5 minutes 45 a K pace. So my pace was through the floor, my heart rate was through the roof. Yeah, Ben, I think it's happening at my end as well. So what I'm going to do is, once this is finished, I will save this file and I will upload it to Coffee. So ko-fi.com/sports test, and you can sit and listen to me chat on while you're out for a run or on your bike, if you find it useful. So yeah, I think sometimes it's the problem at my end. I've got 2 kids on the Wi-Fi in the house, as well as me operating on the phone. Sometimes you get great signal, and other times it drops out a bit, so apologies if I've lost anyone too much. So as I was saying, I've done this particular run over Cannock Chase. I was probably running a minute and a half slower per K than it would be for a steady run, and heart rate's about 15-20 beats higher. And my Garmin told me my recovery time, hey Julie, good to see you. My Garmin told me my recovery time was 50 hours. I went out for a run the next morning, so about 12 hours afterwards, and my Garmin told me my performance conditioning was +7. It's like, well, hang on a minute, those 2 things don't commute. But again, from the training you've done, your Garmin, your Training Peaks won't tell whether you've finished the training session, warmed down properly, if you're not recording it, drunk appropriately, eaten appropriately, stretched, had a good night's sleep. None of those factors Training Peaks picks up. So if you're just chasing numbers, trying to improve cumulative training load, training stress score, trying to reduce that, trying to improve fatigue, it's very, very difficult to do. And the example I give people is, if you live in Southern California and you haven't got a job and you've got 50, 60 hours a week to train, and all you're doing is training, sleeping, relaxing, and not much other stress going on, and the weather's always great, then it's probably not a bad metric. But one of my lasses this morning in Jersey has gone out. Not sure if I saw James pop on earlier, but his wife went out this morning. I've seen her feedback already to her training session. And the winds that we had here in the Midlands last night, I believe it was like that in Jersey this morning. It was like 50 mile an hour winds. and she's gone out and she's done intervals in 50-mile-an-hour winds. Now, of course, performance is going to be compromised. But because the speed is down, the heart rate that she's put in, the stats that we're going to get from Training Peaks are going to tell me that she's not performed as well as she should have done. So what we need to do is we need to look at physiological responses and assess how well that session was undertaken by looking at how well she's achieved the physiological targets of heart rate, and did she meet the heart rate metrics that we provided her with, as opposed to did she meet a pace metric, or did she meet, if she were on the bike, a power metric. So again, we've got loads of differences that we need to look at and balance. Now, I would say there's no one metric that's better than another. You know, power isn't better than heart rate, and heart rate's not better than pace. But what you need to start doing is need to start using 2 or 3 of them combined, so that you can actually see how the body's responding. And I say, you know, there's problems with all of them. And when it comes to racing, and I think Ben picked it up earlier, or someone else picked it up earlier, in a race situation, you know, if you're in a group race, you can't go, whoa, slow down, boys, my heart rate's going out of zone, or I'm over my power threshold that I need to be. You need to respond to what's going on. Using heart rate, power, or pace is for training. And we then objectively look at the different bits of your physiology that we need to work on to improve your physiology so that we move your fitness forward. If we can through lab testing, if we can't through lab testing, through field testing, we look at assessing strengths and weaknesses, so that by assessing those strengths and weaknesses, we can make sure that your training and your fitness is progressing. And then we look again for the holes. We look at where the weaknesses are, and then we smarten your training. And rather than going out and doing hour upon hour of either unstructured or training on field, we try and focus on what we're doing to make sure that your training is far more smarter than just wasting endless hour of training. And then on top of all that, it's then making sure that your recovery is optimal. So for me, power as a cyclist is a phenomenal metric, but only when used in association with heart rate. For me as a triathlete or a runner, heart rate is a phenomenal metric. But if it can be backed up by looking at pace and or power output, then it gives us even more. And we use that to look at what's going on with your physiology. Is your training improving? Are you recovering properly? How are we working towards strengths and weaknesses? Are we looking at nutrition properly? Are we looking at hydration properly? How are you responding to what we're doing so that we can move the body forward? But as I say, in all cases, we've got to constantly reevaluate. And the problem for me with power is that people don't reevaluate power zones often enough. With heart rate, I generally find over the years that unless we've gone through massive changes in your fitness and physiology, you've been laid off with injury, or you've had a long period off, heart rate zones don't move substantially. So generally, heart rate zones that I set people are relatively static. They might need to be moved 2, 3, 5 beats here or there, but it's very rare that I see them shift 20 or 30 beats. But it's not uncommon for me to shift someone's power output zones 30, 40, 50, 70 watts even. And so it's using that combination of both heart rate and power output and getting those metrics that will really help you guys. So, a bit unstructured today. I would have loved to have shown you a load of slides. But I'd love to talk to you with a bit more structure in what we're talking about. I suppose the one thing I've really not spoken about is how we use those zones to talk about hard days and easy days, and how we structure your training better. But I think I've done quite well today. I've been on here for about 40-45 minutes. Questions seem to have dried up. People seem to be dropping off now, so I'm guessing most people are happy with what they've got. If there's questions, please fire away. I'll do another little cheeky. Oh, don't go. I won't go smithing. I'm quite happy to, you know. So the whole point of this smithing from day one was that I jumped on Facebook Live because running by myself on my treadmill was very tedious. So I wanted to show people I was being socially responsible and training on the treadmill and doing stuff that was sensible, and also doing stuff that really light intensity to try and get some fat metabolism going and just to bolster my cardiovascular endurance, because that's the bit that I know I'm weak at the moment, and I'm not massively overweight, but I've got at least a stone to drop before I'm at race weight. So it was all about that. So I thought I'd do a Facebook Live, and I ended up getting chatting to people. And I thought, well, if I'm here, this helps me out. It actually makes me feel a lot more positive. The way I felt this morning, the way I felt 10 minutes before I told you guys I was coming online, I really didn't feel like climbing on the treadmill at all. But now, I'm feeling a lot more positive about facing my day. Hey Hazel, I'm glad you're still there, thank you. And I'm finding it really, really quite a valuable thing for me, and quite a few people have said that they find the information useful. So, you know, I'll stay on here, and there's two caveats that I've got to staying on here. I'll stay on here as long as you're happy for me to keep talking, and I will also stay on here as long as the children don't come and need anything. And so far, Pixie hasn't arrived at the back door with her pants around her ankles because she's gone for a poo. So we're safe on that front so far. So I will keep running away. If you've got questions, you want me to talk, no problems whatsoever. So as I say, we'll do on another day. And maybe I will talk to Joe and work out how we can do this on Zoom with some slides, because I think we can make it a lot more powerful. I want to use it for me. I don't want to just sit at a desk and talk to you. No, I'm quite happily doing another hour smithing, no problems at all. Morning, Paul. I want to make this useful for you. So I'm trying to see if I can get Zoom working and get some slides and do it as a seminar. But, morning Tracy. But the caveat for me is that I want to be exercising, because otherwise I can sit at my desk, and if people want something that's properly structured, properly formatted with slides and a lot more formal, then yeah, I'm quite happy to do that. I'll need to do it on a day where Becky's at home, so I don't get interferences from the children. And I will sit at my desk and I'll sit with slides. But because of the time, the preparation and the cost of using Zoom in seminar format, we'll need to do it with a cost base attached. So if people would like something that's far more formal, where I can answer structured questions and take through a structured approach as we go along, no issue with that whatsoever. I like to keep this informal, so any questions that you've got, please fire them away. If you have found it valuable and you want me to do more, then say pop over coffee.com, ko-fi.com/sports test, and show your appreciation, buy me a coffee or two. And I'll keep coming back and I'll keep doing it. Now, Becky's done virtually a 7-day straight stint. She had Saturday off. But she's now got 3 days off before she's back in at the weekend, Friday, Saturday or Sunday. So it might be that I actually take 3 days off to give my legs a bit of chance to recover, because I've done more treadmill miles in the last week or 10 days than I've done in absolutely ages. But as I say, this for me is about keeping it a low intensity, sensible cadence, sensible heart rate. So I'm down at 115. My watch is still telling me I'm in a warm-up zone, so I'm not even aerobic. But the only way you're going to keep me here, Smithy, is asking me sensible questions, or if anyone else has got sensible questions to ask me, that's cool. If you don't want to do it on this forum, drop me a message personally, privately. I know I've got a couple of people that I need to phone. I'm going to try and phone people. There's one or two that I'm going to try and phone today. Sean and one other. I'll try and give you a call today as promised. Otherwise, when Becky's at home, tomorrow she's home, but I will be coaching all day. So it'll be Wednesday, Thursday will be my best days to give people a call. If you want 20 minutes, half an hour of my time, free, gratis, pick my brains, give you as much information as you want. But really, in the meantime, I just hope you find this is valuable for you. I know this last 10 minutes has just been me dribbling on again. But if you found it valuable to you, you found some valuable information that I put across, it's been quite nice today because I came here and I was a little bit nervous that I didn't have a structure that I wanted to follow. It's all just sort of dropped out of my brain. Yeah, looking forward to that, Smithy. That'll be good, I think. But this is just all about keeping people sane. Keeps me sane, gives people an opportunity to learn. One of the guys, I'm not sure Kane's still on here, but Kane did a nutrition chat yesterday, and I did very much the same thing. I had the phone on in the background, and I was doing other jobs and looking after the kids, and I was on the phone call at one time, but I was able to drift in and out. Now, I know he's also placed that live on his Facebook page, so we will be, you'll be able to download that and listen to that. So a lot of you guys that go out and run with headphones on might want to listen to me dribble on. They might find it takes an hour of your time. Right. Can I... right, okay. Recovery drinks. Can I remember store cupboard alternatives for a recovery drink? Be interesting to see what Kane suggests on this one, if Kane is still on. So, simple ones. If we want to get... There's Julia. I hope you're well. Right, so what would I do is an off-the-shelf recovery drink. So first thing we want to do, Paul, is hydrate. So this is tacking on a bit after the nutrition stuff that we did the other day. So first thing we want to do is we want to rehydrate. So fluid in there. Trying to match sweat loss, trying to match 1.5 to 2 times sweat loss. Then, additionally to that, what we've got to be careful of is we need products that are going to empty from the stomach rapidly and fairly easily. So, I know a lot of people will do something like orange juice. Maybe watered down orange juice, because you don't want to drink 2 litres of orange juice because there's just so much sugar in it. If you need a pinch of salt in that, so you probably want orange juice, 10% concentration, you want 40 to 60 grams of carbohydrate as a starting point, so 500 mils of orange juice. Water that down, pinch of salt in there. So now we've got most of our carbohydrate needs, a little bit of sodium in there to help replenish the sweat loss. Now, most of the salts will actually be replaced in your first meal post-exercise. On top of that, we want some protein. Now, if you've not got any whey protein to hand, again, the other way you can do it is you can water down your orange juice. So you have 200, 250 mils of orange juice, and maybe you go for something like poached egg, scrambled egg, maybe on a slice of toast to make it slightly easier. So we've got your protein coming in that way, or slice of toast with peanut butter. So again, you've got some good healthy fats and you've got some proteins coming through in that way. So that would probably be one of the easy ways of doing it. Potentially small amount of fish, small amount of chicken breast. What we've got to be careful with is solid food takes time to digest. So I would probably be loading the fluid and the carbohydrate first, and then having that 15 to 30 grams of protein fairly soon after you've had the fluid load. And that will give you your carbohydrate and your protein as an off-the-shelf, as opposed to off-the-shelf from a sports drinks company. Does that help? Give that a try, see how you get on with that. And if you're saying, oh, you'll do it, yeah. And again, I can't see the second half of your message. Alternative, as I'm guessing, your deliveries aren't happening at the moment. So there's no point in me saying, I'll get you something and post it to you. The other thing that Kane will say at this time is very, very worthwhile is having a good multivitamin morning and evening to just top up and make sure you've got that good variety coming through. And then lots of variety in your diet, lots of greens, lots of colours, reds, yellows, all sorts of colours. Milk as a recovery drink. Yes, it does work, Adrian. I know the discussion I always have with Tim Lawson from Science and Sport is there was a study a few years ago that suggested that chocolate milk was an optimal recovery drink as good as some of the sports nutrition products. The problem you've got is that unless you're having skim milk, you're putting quite a lot of fat back into the body that you don't necessarily need or want. And the study that promoted the fact that chocolate milk was good looked at post-exercise urine production as opposed to how much glycogen was taken up by the muscle post-exercise. And I also, Tim from Stealth, it used to be Science and Sport, Tim Lawson, had suggested that actually the reason for that is that because of the fats in the milk, is that the protein and the hydration actually wasn't being absorbed anywhere near as quickly as a normal sports product. And that's why when they looked at post-exercise urine, it was because the body wasn't absorbing it properly, rather than that was an optimal recovery drink. So again, it's finding something that works for you. And you know what? If you can have a pint of milk with some sugar in there, it's better than nothing, but there are probably other options that are available. And at the end of the day, the level that you and I are at, better than nothing whatsoever. And I think that's the problem, is that something is better than nothing. So go for that something as opposed to go for that nothing, and then we'll see what you guys end up with. Like the same as when I was used to work with you, Adrian. Keep your diary, find out what works for you. And I still seem to think that yeah, it is actually. I know there's a photo of you in our book, but the heart rate responses of how to train are your heart rate responses from how you used to ride to work in the morning. Skim milk and Nesquik. Yeah, banana or strawberry hazel, my favourites. But if you look at them, it's full of sugar and it's full of additives. So again, there's a delicate balance. But yes, skim milk and Nesquik, potentially an option if there's nothing else available to you. So again, Paul, that's something that you maybe want to look at. If Kane's online, which I think he's probably dropped off now, I'll ask him and see what he suggests if nothing else is available. But you know, protein, something like your eggs, omelette, yeah, we probably need to update them, but they're probably not far off. I've got a tub of chocolate. I just didn't get on with the chocolate Nesquik hazel, so it's possibly gone out of date. But if you want it when this is all over, it's one of the few chocolate products that I don't consume. So guys, any more questions? We're coming up to an hour. I'm quite happy to stay online, but I think if I wrap it as an hour, it will make it easier for me to save the video, and I'll come back in a day or two. Any questions, message me. Hope you found it useful. I know there's a few of you been online and bought me a coffee as we've been going on, so always much appreciated. And just let me know if there's anything more you want from me over the coming days. I am actually going to stop on for another 15 minutes because the kids still haven't realised I'm here, but I'm just going to finish this live for now. And thank you all for your time. Hopefully you found it useful. Cheers guys, bye now.